Welcome this week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program. Thank you for joining us. Please join us and like us on Facebook. Very simple, facebook.com/This Week in America. On our program is Sandra Edwards. She's the author and illustrator of the Playdough Poem. She's joining us via Skype today. Sandra, welcome to the program. A pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Rick. It's such a thrill to be here.
Well, I'm looking through the book, and this is colorful. It's designed for children. Let's talk about the premise in the beginning, why you decided to do this. It's called the Playdough Poem. How did that all come about?
Well, I was teaching pre-K Sunday school way back in 1998, and the children just wanted to play with Play-Doh week after week. They just wanted to keep pulling out those rolling pins and cookie cutters, and I wanted to teach creation versus evolution because we have to know that we started from a purpose. The God of the universe created us. We didn't evolve from primordial soup or something over millions of years, but God created us with a purpose. And I wanted to teach that to the kids, but they just wanted to play with Play-Doh. And it seemed to me that there was a connection between the Play-Doh that had to be created. You have to have the right ingredients. You have to mix them appropriately. You have to cook it just right. And there has to be a creator involved. So it seemed to me that there was a connection between the Play-Doh that the kids wanted to play with and the creation that I wanted to teach. So I asked God himself, what is this connection? And within minutes, I had the poem right there in my prayer journal. And that was 15 years ago. So it took me that long to get up the nerve, really, to produce it. And then I illustrated it, and I was able to publish it. And I'm quite thrilled with the book.
Well, let's talk about the book. The book is called The Playdough Poem, and information is available at Sandra's website, which is theplaydoughpoem.com. Information there. You can log on to our website, and you'll get that information, as well as you can link up with Sandra. This is done in a poem form, and I'm reading through this, and it's like this really took some work to put this together. Did it take a while to get everything to okay, now I'm rhyming? You got to continue the rhyme, and you also at the same time have to keep that message going forward.
The poem poured out of my pen. It was very exciting, and I knew that it was inspired. And it wasn't something that I had made up. It was an answer to my prayer. And God himself gave that to me. And my duty, I guess, is to publish it and to make it known, which is a very scary proposition. And I did not want to do it for a long time. And I offered it to other people. But it's kind of my baby. So I was able to present it to the world. And I'm going to keep going with it. And I know that it's the right message. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's the very first line of the Bible. So I know for sure that my poem that echoes that is from him.
Sandra Edwards is our guest on This Week in America. The book is called The Playdough Poem. Her website is theplaydoughpoem.com. And then you mentioned the illustration. So once you get the poem together where you're satisfied with that, and you've got some excellent, colorful, multicultural pictures, how did that idea come about? And by the way, the book and we'll talk about that in a second, it's in 3 languages as well.
Yes. The illustrations, it took me 5 months of about 2011 to get those. Every single day off that I had for those 5 months, I sat and I worshiped and I did my Bible study. And I asked God, okay, what do I do now? What do I do? And they took a long time. I thought they would pour from my brush, but it didn't happen quite that quickly. But I'm, again, very thrilled with the outcome. And I have been kind of a multicultural fan for a long time. I've just noticed that in a lot of even animated movies, the background characters are all Caucasian. And that just doesn't seem right to me when there are so many other colors of people in the world. And God made everybody. So he wants everybody to know that he is the creator. He made the rules and he has the right to say that we're wrong. We're all accountable to him. So I wanted the message to be universal, and which I looked around at the mall and I realized there were a lot of Hispanic people. So I wanted, my first thought was, oh, hey, maybe when this book sells big, I can have a Spanish translation. And then I realized that I could do it all at once. And since I was increasing the size of the book anyway, I could go ahead and add French to it.
And I'm so impressed in looking not only at the illustrations on the inside, but the colorful cover for the book, the front cover as well. I'm sure this is all part of getting the children's attention where they not only want to pick it up, they want to continue in reading it because it really captures their attention.
Yes, and it's easy to memorize. So you can it flows very nicely, which is another reason for doing my children had a 3 languages in one book, but it was all on the same page, all 3 lines on each page, and that just really does not flow well. So I made the decision to do separate English, Spanish, and French chapters so that the whole story flows for each person that reads it, whether they want to read all 3 languages or not. You get the whole story in each chapter.
Tell me about the impression this has made on the children that you teach. I mentioned the Sunday school. It's been over 20 years you've been doing that. Vacation Bible schools, different leadership conferences, that type of thing. I imagine when you've got something that really sticks out, it's not just Sandra up front giving this message and the kids are looking off in other areas and trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Now, really, you've got something that they're excited about, and I would assume the fact that they remember a lot better when you've got the whole package you're presenting.
Yes, most definitely. And it's just colorful and fun. And I've got on the website, so that can be shown maybe as an intro to a creation versus evolution lesson, or you could make your own video using the lines. There's only 14 lines to it, so you could do 14 different people or different groups of people or whatever, and make that a class project to expand it and make your own video out of the story.
What kind of response are you getting from the parents whose children now are probably coming home and the drive home from church are talking all about this great lesson they had today at Bible school, at Sunday school? What kind of response are you getting from parents, and what kind of response are you getting from the clergy?
The parents are thrilled with it. There's not really much that's out there that's specifically creation versus evolution. Answers in Genesis has a lot of materials, but the storybook like this is unique. And I've got a lot of support from various clergy people who thank me for writing it and letting the word be heard.
You mentioned it was scary and you put off for a while. You felt maybe you were called to do this, but boy, the next step is a big one. I've never done this before. I'm actually going to put a book together. I'm going to try to find out how to publish the book. Then I have to try to figure out how to get this book in people's hands. How difficult a process was that, going through and like, okay, I'm going to make the jump now, and finding a way to publish it and promote the book?
The main holdback for me is that it is creation versus evolution. And I knew that there was a lot of resistance to that theme. And I've discovered how much resistance there is since I've been on Twitter. And then that's just been the last few months that I started to promote the book and to let people know that it was available. And I have gotten, just last night, I had 68 interactions. That's not just random people shooting things out. That is people directed at me. And they were all evolutionists, anti-theists, complaining about my book, saying that I don't know what I'm talking about. Evolution is a proven fact, on and on and on. So that's been the hardest part. And it also makes it very difficult to market the book because it is a very select audience that kind of has that theme already. Because even not all Christians recognize that God created the universe and that the theory of evolution is promoted very vigorously, but it's not, you can't prove millions of years because nobody was there to give you a starting point. So it's a very challenging work. And there are some pastors that are really for it, and there are some that are a little more reticent. So I really have to pick my audience carefully.
You know, what's interesting is even if you get pushback, the bottom line is people are thinking and having a dialogue. That at least has to make you feel like they probably haven't even had this discussion in a long time. At least now they're thinking.
Exactly. And there's so much misinformation and just the subject of dinosaurs. And it seems like, well, where does that come in? But everybody thinks, well, dinosaurs, 65 million years. Where do you get that? The thought is presented by Mickey Mouse, the Berenstain Bears, by science everywhere, millions of years, and when we were primates, and there's actually this theory that we were fish in our evolutionary heritage, and all this other stuff, and it just doesn't make sense. So my calling is to get the message out that God created the universe. The dinosaurs were species of critters that have since gone extinct, just like we have other animals today going extinct for various reasons. So there are actually pastors that have taught, and I've heard that currently teach, that dinosaur bones were stuck in the ground by Satan to throw us off or test our faith or something like that. But that just really doesn't make sense. It's actually evidence of Noah's flood, that there were these great floodwaters that covered all these creatures. That's where the rock formations come from, all kinds of things. If you look on the Answers of Genesis website, you'll find lots of information about dinosaurs and the flood and all the creationist viewpoint on flood geology and all kinds of interesting topics.
Well, it's a fascinating topic and one that you've really broken down again, where it grabs the attention of the young people you have in Sunday school, gets them talking. And again, whenever we're talking, we're moving forward. That's really not bad when we start thinking and talking, especially at the same time. Our guest on the program is Sandra Edwards. The book is called The Playdough Poem. It's available all across the country. Information at her website, theplaydoughpoem.com. It's beautifully illustrated. It's in 3 different languages, all in the same book. It's great, been very well received by the children, and that's the target audience out there, to try to get their attention and to get a simple message across to them. Sandra, best of luck with the project. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Rick. It's been a pleasure.
You're listening to This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.